Every time you buy something you don't need to impress people you don't like, you're practicing a religion, not metaphorically, literally. Consumerism has priests, they're called influencers. It has temples, they're called malls. It has holy days, Black Friday, Prime Day, Christmas. It has rituals, unboxing videos, haul videos, retail therapy. And it has human sacrifices. That's you, your time, your money, your life. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. If consumerism is a religion, what exactly is it promising you? Salvation, happiness, identity, and what are you actually getting in return? Because 48% of people who make impulse purchases regret them almost immediately, which means the promise is a lie, but you keep believing anyway. The real question isn't why you buy things you don't need. It's simpler and more unsettling than that. How did we build an entire civilization around sacrificing our lives to acquire objects that don't make us happy? And what happens when you finally realize you've been worshiping at the wrong altar your entire life? This is about the biggest con in human history, the moment shopping stopped being a necessity and became a belief system, and why you, right now, are trapped inside it, trading hours of your life for things that will never give you what they promised. Let's start with the most basic question. Why do you feel empty after buying something you desperately wanted? Not sometimes, often. 95% of purchases are driven by emotion, not logic. You see something, your brain floods with dopamine. You imagine how it will change your life, how you'll feel when you own it, how others will see you. You buy it, and within hours, sometimes minutes, the feeling is gone. The thing you were convinced you needed is just another object. The emptiness returns often deeper than before. Here's the hard number. 56% of impulse buyers regret their purchase, more than half, and 45% of those people keep the item anyway, living with something they don't want, don't need, and in many cases can't afford. They cite poor quality, false advertising, realizing they didn't actually need it. But the real reason is simpler. The product was never the point. The feeling was the point, and the feeling was a lie. This is the core mechanic of consumer religion. Promise transcendence. Deliver objects. The gap between what you expected to feel and what you actually feel, that's the emptiness. And just like any religion that doesn't deliver on its promises, the response isn't to leave. It's to buy again, to try harder, to believe more. Because maybe the next purchase will be the one that finally works. Post-purchase anxiety affects nearly 2/3 of online buyers. Think about that. You spend money, often money you don't have, and the immediate result is anxiety, not joy, not satisfaction, anxiety. And yet, you keep doing it. Why? Because the religion of consumerism has convinced you that the problem isn't the system. The problem is you. You didn't buy the right thing. You didn't buy enough. You need to consume more, better, smarter. The algorithm will guide you. The influencers will show you the way. Just keep buying. But when did this start? When did shopping stop being a means to acquire necessities and become therapy? The shift happened slowly, then all at once. By the early 2000s, the term retail therapy was culturally entrenched. But the behavior, shopping to improve mood, to manage stress, to alleviate sadness, that became widespread in the late 20th century as consumer culture exploded. Today, 52% of Americans admit to engaging in retail therapy. Among women, it's 64%. Nearly half of all consumers consider emotional spending normal. 54% view it as self-care. Let that sink in. Spending money you often don't have on things you don't need is now considered self-care. That's not a coping mechanism. That's a religious belief. And the numbers behind it are staggering. Americans make an average of 156 impulse purchases per year, spending around $5,400 annually. Over a lifetime, that's $324,000. In the UK, it's similar, 200 deals per month, totaling $143,902 over a lifetime. Billions of dollars, billions of pounds spent not on necessities, but on emotional management, on filling a void. And here's the kicker. 74% of emotional shoppers admit to overspending. 43% have gone into debt because of it. The religion of consumerism doesn't just fail to deliver happiness. It actively traps you in financial bondage. And the response isn't to question the system, it's to offer you easier ways to participate. Buy now, pay later. One-click purchasing. Subscribe and save. The priests of this religion have made sacrifice easier than ever. So where does the promise come from? Why do you believe, even for a moment, that owning the latest iPhone, the newest sneakers, the right handbag will change your life? Because the marketing is designed to make you believe exactly that. Take the iPhone. 81% of users report satisfaction. 92% of iPhone users stick with Apple when they upgrade. 73% describe themselves as loyal. But here's what's really being sold. Not a phone, but belonging. Certainty, status. 40% of iPhone users earn over $100,000 a year. Owning an iPhone signals that you're part of that group or aspire to be. It's not about the device, it's about identity. And this is where consumerism becomes indistinguishable from religion. You're not buying a product, you're buying a piece of identity. A signal to yourself and others about who you are or who you want to be. The phone, the car, the clothes, they're not objects, they're symbols, totems. And when someone criticizes the brand you love, it feels like a personal attack because it is. They're not attacking a product, they're attacking a piece of your identity. 71% of emotionally connected customers recommend their brand. Those customers have a 306% higher lifetime value. Because emotional connection isn't rational, it's tribal, it's religious. 70% of consumer decisions are driven by emotion, not logic. When someone criticizes Apple or Nike or whatever brand you've tied to your sense of self, your brain processes it the same way it processes personal rejection. The same neural pathways light up. It's not about the product, it's about you, and that's by design. But here's the uncomfortable question. How much of your identity is actually just the products you own? This is where it gets dark. Because if you strip away the brands, the logos, the possessions, who are you? Research shows that people with product-dependent identities, those whose sense of self is heavily tied to what they own, experience more anxiety, more financial stress, and more dissatisfaction. They're trapped in a cycle. Buy to signal identity, feel temporary validation, feel emptiness, buy again. The identity is never secure because it's built on objects that can be lost, stolen, outdated, or replaced. And the market knows this. 62% of consumers say their interest in a brand increases after seeing it on Instagram stories. 90% of Instagram users follow business accounts. The entire system is designed to make you believe that your identity is incomplete without the right products, that you're not enough until you buy. And once you buy, you're still not enough. Because there's always something newer, better, more expensive. So why do you keep buying things to impress people who don't care? 84% of shoppers have made impulse purchases. 70% bought something just because it was on sale. Not because they needed it, because it was on sale. 61% of millennials bought something they first saw on social media. 70% of those spent $100 or more. 26% spent $500 or more on things they saw on a screen marketed by people they don't know to impress people who aren't even paying attention. Here's the truth. The people you're trying to impress aren't impressed. They're too busy trying to impress you. Everyone is performing for an audience that doesn't exist. 35% of consumers used a credit card for their last impulse purchase. They went into debt to impress no one. And 9% of impulse buyers can't even remember how much they spent. It's not about the item. It's about the compulsion, the ritual, the religion. And like any religion, if you stop practicing, you fear losing your identity. So what would happen if you stopped shopping for 30 days? Would you have an identity crisis? The data suggests numbers. 16% of Americans have participated in month-long economic boycotts or no-spend challenges. They didn't collapse. They adapted. 50% of boycott participants simply bought ahead of time. They planned. They adjusted. But they didn't fall apart. In fact, many reported feeling relief, less anxiety, more clarity. Because the cycle of consumption is exhausting, and stepping off, even temporarily, reveals how much of it was unnecessary. But the religion of consumerism doesn't want you to stop, ever. Because the moment you stop, you start asking dangerous questions. How did corporations convince you that spending money equals self-care? The self-care industry was worth $41.2 billion in 2023, projected to hit $81.2 billion. The wellness market, which includes everything from gym memberships to skincare to supplements, is $5.6 trillion globally. In America alone, it's over $500 billion annually. This isn't an accident. This is a calculated rebranding of consumption as self-love. Bank of America data shows spending on self-care services increased 1.6% year over year in 2024. Retail, self-care products declined slightly, but experiential purchases, the things you do for yourself, surged. Why? Because corporations realized that if they could rebrand spending as an act of self-care, they could make you feel virtuous for consuming. You're not being selfish. You're investing in yourself. You're not overspending. You're prioritizing your mental health. The language is deliberate. The result is profit. Gen Z and millennials, 36% of the population, drive over 41% of wellness spending. Female consumers spent more on cosmetic self-care in 2024. And here's the most telling stat. 39% of consumers say they won't give up self-care routines even amid inflation. They'll cut other expenses, but not this, because they've been taught that spending on themselves is non-negotiable. That's religion. And the most powerful ritual in this religion? The unboxing. Why does opening a package give you the same rush as a religious experience? Because it activates the exact same brain regions. Anticipation triggers dopamine release. The buildup, the waiting, the mystery of what's inside, even when you know what you ordered. Neuroscience shows that unboxing activates reward and pleasure centers. The multi-sensory experience, the tactile feel of tearing cardboard, the visual reveal, even the sound heightens emotional response. It's designed to feel immersive, sacred almost, and it's not just personal. 87% of Instagram users say their purchasing decisions are influenced by what they see on the platform. 54% have bought a product after seeing it on Instagram. The unboxing video, watching someone else perform the ritual, becomes a form of digital worship. You watch, you desire, you buy. You unbox, you film it, you post it, the cycle completes. You've participated in the ritual, you've proven your faith. But the high fades, it always does, and you're left with the object and the emptiness. So let's ask the question that should terrify you. Are you working to live, or just to afford the lifestyle Instagram told you you need? The numbers are brutal. 87% of Instagram users say their purchasing decisions are influenced by the platform. 54% have bought something after seeing it on Instagram. 86% of consumers make at least one purchase per year based on influencer recommendations. Influencer marketing alone is projected at $16 billion in 2025. This is a vast infrastructure designed to make you feel inadequate, then sell you the solution. You follow people whose lives look perfect, their homes, their bodies, their vacations, their products. And slowly, unconsciously, you start to believe that your life should look like that too, that you need those things. 62% of consumers say their interest in a brand increases after seeing it in Instagram stories. The algorithm learns what you want, then shows you more of it. You're not choosing freely, you're being guided, shaped, sold to, and you're working more hours to afford it. Because the lifestyle you're chasing isn't real. It's curated, sponsored, often entirely fabricated. But you don't see that. You see the image. You feel the lack. You buy. And the gap between your life and the life you think you should have, that gap is where the religion of consumerism lives. In the space between who you are and who you think you should be. Which raises the most devastating question of all. How many hours of your life have you traded for things now sitting unused in your closet? The average consumer spends about 6 hours per week shopping online. That's 312 hours per year. Over a decade, that's 3,020 hours. And studies show that people wear only 20 to 30% of their clothing regularly, which means 70 to 80% sits unused. Let's be conservative. If half of your shopping time results in unused items, that's 156 hours per year, 1,160 hours per decade. Spent acquiring things that add nothing to your life, that's 65 full days. 2 months of your life, gone. Traded for objects you don't use. And that's just clothing. Add in gadgets, kitchen tools, home decor, books you'll never read, courses you'll never finish, subscriptions you forget about. The numbers compound. Thousands of hours, tens of thousands of dollars, entire years of your life traded for clutter. But the religion of consumerism tells you it's fine. You deserve it. You earned it. Treat yourself. And when you can't afford what influencers are promoting, you feel like a failure. Why? Because the influencer marketing industry is $32.55 billion globally in 2025, up from $10 billion in 2020. 73% of brands focus on micro and mid-tier influencers. 80% of brands are maintaining or increasing their budgets. You are being advertised to constantly by people whose job is to make you feel like you're missing out. And when you can't buy what they're selling, you internalize it as personal failure. Not systemic manipulation, not economic inequality, personal failure. That's the genius of consumer religion. It makes you blame yourself for not being able to afford the life it promises, even though the life it promises is fake. So what are you really sacrificing at the altar of Black Friday? In 2024, Black Friday generated $74.4 billion in global online sales, $10.81 billion in the US alone. 81.7 million people shopped in stores. 87.3 million shopped online. 24% plan to spend $1,000 or more. 1 in 3 started shopping on Thanksgiving Day. Peak sales hit $4.6 million per minute. But here's what's actually happening. 70% of Black Friday shoppers cited rising costs of living as a reason to cut back. Yet they still participated. They still spent. They're financially stressed, anxious about the future, and yet they showed up to the temple on the holy day and made their offering because that's what religion demands. Sacrifice, even when it hurts. The average cart was 110.71. Wow, doesn't sound like much, but multiply it by millions of transactions. Financed increasingly by payment plans, buy now, pay later schemes that let you sacrifice future income for present consumption. 54% of sales were mobile. Impulse purchases made on a screen while sitting on your couch. You're not shopping for deals, you're performing a ritual. And the cost isn't just money. It's time with family, financial security, the erosion of the line between need and want. You're sacrificing your future for objects that won't matter in 6 months. And then there's the most insidious twist. Minimalism became just another thing to buy. The global minimalist furniture market was 49,066 billion dollars in 2023, projected to reach $81.1 billion by 2030. The minimalist lifestyle products market was $10 billion in 2024, expected to hit $25 billion by 2032. Minimalism fashion in North America alone was $20.4 billion in 2025. Minimalist jewelry is projected at $105 billion globally. You read that correctly. The aesthetic of owning less is now a $100 billion plus industry, because corporations realize they could sell you minimalism, sell you the idea of simplicity, sell you fewer, better things, which conveniently cost more. You're not escaping consumerism. You're upgrading your membership. People are buying minimalist furniture and renting storage units for the stuff they can't fit in their minimalist homes. It's not reduction, it's rebranding. The religion adapted, it always does. So here's the final, unthinkable question. If consumerism collapsed tomorrow, who would you be without your stuff? Over 4.4 billion people worldwide are part of the consumer class, spending over $60 trillion annually. Consumer spending drives 70% of the economy. The top income quintile accounts for 57% of total consumption. The average household has 9,869 in liquid assets, down 10% in the last 16 months. Struggling households have just 2,136, down 27%. Consumer sentiment is at its lowest point in years. People are trading down in some categories to splurge in others. The system is fragile, and it's built entirely on your willingness to keep buying. If it stopped, if people collectively decided to stop consuming beyond necessity, the economy would collapse. Not might, would. Because the entire system is built on perpetual growth, which requires perpetual consumption, which requires you to keep believing the promise that the next purchase will be the one that makes you happy, whole, complete. But without your stuff, without the brands, the logos, the possessions, you'd be forced to confront a much harder question. Who are you really? Not the curated version, not the aspirational version, not the version you're trying to sell on Instagram. The real version, stripped of products, stripped of signals, just you. And that's the question the religion of consumerism never wants you to ask. Because the moment you do, the moment you realize that your identity exists independent of what you own, the whole system loses its power. You stop being a sacrifice. You stop believing the promise. You stop trading your life for objects that were never going to save you. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Consumerism is the dominant religion of the modern world. It has more followers than Christianity, Islam, or any traditional faith. Billions of people, every day, practicing its rituals, tithing to its institutions, seeking salvation through consumption. And it promises the same thing every religion promises: transcendence, meaning, belonging, happiness. But unlike traditional religions, which at least offer community and metaphysical hope, consumerism only offers objects. And objects can't love you back. They can't give you purpose. They can't fill the void. But the religion tells you to keep trying. Keep buying. Keep sacrificing. The next product will be different. The next purchase will work. Just have faith. 4 empires collapsed because they debased their currency. But we're collapsing because we've debased ourselves. We've traded the finite hours of our lives, our attention, our labor, our relationships for infinite consumption. And we call it normal. We call it self-care. We call it success. But it's not. It's sacrifice. You are the offering. Your time, your money, your potential, laid on the altar of Black Friday, Prime Day, Instagram ads, unboxing videos, retail therapy, and the gods you're worshiping, the corporations, the algorithms, the influencers, they don't care about you. They care about your wallet, your clicks, your data, your devotion. The pattern across history is clear. Empires fall when they can no longer sustain their own weight, when the promises they make exceed their ability to deliver, when the currency, whether literal or metaphorical, loses all meaning. And consumerism is in terminal decline, not because people have stopped buying, but because the promise is breaking down. The emptiness is too obvious, the debt is too crushing. The gap between what's promised and what's delivered is too wide. You can feel it, the exhaustion, the sense that something is deeply wrong. The cognitive dissonance of living in the richest society in history and feeling like you never have enough. That's not personal failure. That's systemic design. The religion of consumerism requires you to never be satisfied, because satisfaction is the end of consumption. And the end of consumption is the end of the system. So what do you do with this knowledge? You can't opt out completely, not in a world where participation is mandatory for survival. But you can stop worshiping. You can stop believing the promise. You can stop sacrificing your life for objects that don't love you back. You can ask, before every purchase, is this a need or a ritual? Am I buying this because it improves my life? Or because I've been taught that buying is what you do when you feel empty? And you can remember this. The religion of consumerism only works if you believe. The moment you stop, the moment you see it for what it is, a system designed to extract your life and give you plastic in return, it loses its power, not over the world, but over you. If this gave you a new lens, a way of seeing what's actually happening beneath the surface of every ad, every influencer post, every Black Friday sale, subscribe. Because the real story is never in the product, it's in the pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You just have to decide whether you're going to keep participating or start living a different way.